I'm sitting here in awe, like in awe of you,
Yeah.
because you said yes to this opportunity when maybe your habit self would have said no.
Yeah.
You know, like your habit self at during that juncture in your life, broken, feeling helpless, hopeless, hurt, and all the other things that go on to that.
Yep.
But you said yes,
Yep.
and now you're the general manager of the PTSD Foundation of America.
Yep.
When you look back at that, when you actually look back at that, when you look at yourself in the mirror, or your family looks at you, what do you see?
Me today, I see someone who follows Christ
Hmm.
and have a job, but it's not really a job. It's a blessing. It's what I get. I get to go out every day and find veterans that are just like myself, and offer them a chance at a new life.
Yeah.
Like, so when I look in my mirror, I'm finally proud of myself today. Before I went through my experience with Camp Hope and the PTSD Foundation, I couldn't look in the mirror at myself. That was one of the hardest parts. Even going through the program, that was one of the things we had to do. We had to look into the mirror, look into our eyes, and say, I love myself.
Wow.
Doing that the first few times was hard,
Yeah.
but today I can do it and actually believe it.
Shoot, I'm gonna have to do it after this podcast. Make sure I can do it. No, seriously though, I mean that's powerful, man. That is so powerful. Unfinished business. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Unfinished Business, a podcast for veterans pursuing new life missions. A lot of people know how to honor military service publicly. Far fewer know how to sit with what happens to veterans privately after the uniform comes off. Kenny Thomas understands that reality because he lived it. Combat deployments to Afghanistan and Iraq were only part of the story. The harder battle came afterward, during the years he spent carrying PTSD and suicidal thoughts while trying to function in everyday life. Today, Kenny serves as the general manager for the PTSD Foundation of America, an organization committed to helping combat veterans and families navigate the invisible wounds of war through peer support, mentorship, faith, and accountability and restoration. Through the PTSD Foundation of America and Camp Hope, Kenny now works alongside veterans who are fighting battles many people will never fully see. What makes his story matter is that he did not disappear into bitterness or isolation. He found his way into work that now helps other combat veterans survive the same darkness he once fought through himself. This is my conversation with Kenny Thomas, General Manager for the PTSD Foundation of America. Kenny, my man.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. This is a long time coming for me, for me to ask you to be on the podcast. I want you to know when I met you at the fellowship, the Veterans Appreciation Luncheon hosted by Fellowship Power Lunch several years ago. I was already like pulled to like, dude, get this guy on the podcast because you know what PTSD, what it did to me. I knew what it did to my life. I knew what it meant and what, and we talked a little bit about that off camera, and so it was always this like constant pull. And I'm glad I didn't give up on the opportunity to have you on. And I reached out again. I said, this is an important conversation that a lot of veterans need to hear. Important conversation because you have some authority to speak on it, having gone through your trials and tribulations. When I read the cold opening, what thoughts and feelings went through your mind?
Really, my journey, kind of like just thinking about the journey again of where I started at, where I began, and kind of all of the ups and downs and the battles that I went through, and never believing I would be at where I'm at today.
That's so crazy. And I always said, when we were talking off camera, I see God works in this magical, omnipotent, and omnipowerful way in your life. Let's talk about where you were before, right? Before we talk about Camp Hope and PTSD Foundation of America, and for the work you do now with them and with both, who were you before all of this became part of your life?
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town in North Alabama called Coleman, on a 600 fully functioning farm. So I was just a small town country boy, really. And then, I joined the Army in 2000, went to the infantry, Then soon after I got to my unit in the 101st Airborne with the Rocket Science, I got deployed to Afghanistan in '01. Came home 6 months later, got deployed to Iraq in '03. So I'd invaded both countries within my 4 years of being in the military. And I was done after that. I was like, I want to get out.
Yeah.
But I still wasn't at the point where I could identify that I was struggling. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was. So for like the next 12 years, I went through hell.
Yeah.
Pretty much is the best way to put it. I mean, I burnt all my relationships. I lost my career. I lost everything and lost myself in that. But luckily, getting to where I was at in 2016, I found myself again.
That's beautiful. When you look back at your time in the 101st Airborne and your deployments to Afghanistan and Iraq, what do you think those years changed in you that you didn't fully understand at the time?
It took away my innocence. It took away, like, I know, like Afghanistan was a pretty basic deployment for us. It wasn't too kinetic. Iraq, though, was a deployment that really changed my life. The Battle of Al Halal, exactly. So that's when I lost that part of me where I no longer saw humans as mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, something like that. I just put them in a bucket as I looked at them as bugs. That's how I survived getting through that combat tour. Just looking at and having that aspect, and then accepting the fact that 21, I'm already dead. Like I don't think that's something normal for a young person to accept, the fact that they're already dead. They're out there living their life. But I know for me to be able to function in that environment, I had to accept it and just believe it and go through it. So a lot of that really changed my perspective on life. A lot of the false guilt, a lot of self-hate, really a lot of just loss of who I was.
You know, I was thinking about it as you were talking. It's like you dealt with some numb, and became numb.
Yeah.
Is that a fair word to
That's
say?
a very fair word.
When you look back at that time as well, like yeah, how much did that you said you saw people as bugs, or you saw the thing as bugs. When you look back at that now, that position that you had, what has changed? How did it evolve from that mindset? What was the journey like for you when you said, "Oh, well, look, man, I lost some sense of how would you describe?"
Sense of humanity, I think. So, I finally, through my journey of recovery and everything, I finally understood that, the enemy were fighting for the same things we were fighting for what they believed in. They were somebody's father, husband, son, brother, whatever that looked like. So coming to the reality of understanding all of that really helped bring me back into humanity, grounded back in it to understand, and it really allowed me to open up and start to forgive myself and start to forgive others.
You know, recently I had a few maybe last year sometime I had a gentleman named Charles Bischoff. Are you familiar with him? He does Next Stop. He's a resource guy for like jobs for veterans, and he talked about a word I hadn't heard before: moral guilt.
Yeah, moral injuries.
Yeah, moral injuries. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah. Share a little bit about how that was played a role in your life as well. Yeah, talk to me about. Is that what we're speaking to right now?
So I suffered from PTSD, but the biggest portion is moral injury. It's where you experience something that goes against everything you were raised to believe in. You either experienced it or you witnessed it and couldn't stop it. So that's what we call a God-sized hole in your heart that only Christ can fill. Because that moral injury is really what keeps you crippled for the longest period of time. Because, PTSD is more of a physical symptoms. You get the hypervigilance, the anxiety, the increased heart rate, all that stuff that affects your body. But that moral injury is where that depression comes in. That's where that suicidal ideation comes in. That's where a lot of that loss of purpose comes in.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Also, what would you agree? Like even more injury, like post-war, post-combat, having to, you became a different person.
Yep.
Is that fair to say? The person who left was not the same person who came back.
100%.
Yeah. And let me ask you this, after you came home, what did PTSD look like in your everyday life before you had the words to name it? Before you answer that, I just want to clarify this. Like, anyone who sits in this chair, and they have like they have to go back and really get in touch with those things. I'm very careful for it. I don't,
Yeah.
I know that suffering, struggle, the things that we're getting embarking on a journey where I want to make sure. I always say people's suffering is like a vase, a glass vase. You want to treat it with respect and dignity. So if you ever feel uncomfortable to not to share, then please let me know. Okay, so I don't feel like talking about that right now. That's
Yeah.
fine. Okay. But what did PTSD look like in your everyday life before you had words to name it?
Really, it was isolation. It was not feeling like, oh, I fit in society. It was the anxiety, the nightmares, the suicidal ideations, the avoidance of things that would remind me of events that we experienced over in Iraq. It was a lot of pain.
Hmm.
I mean, a lot of internal pain that I hid from the world.
Hmm.
I became like a lot of veterans, I believe, I became great at wearing a mask.
Hmm.
I could really cover up a whole lot.
Yeah. Yeah, mask wearing is one of those I think in the cold opening I said something that we function we function, we're functioning, but deep down stuff is still getting to us.
Yeah.
You spent years, and this is kind of transitions in this question, that the statement that you just made. You spent years working as a respiratory therapist
Yes.
while privately carrying combat related PTSD. What was it like helping other people breathe while, in some ways, fighting to breathe through your own life?
So, when I first started my career in respiratory therapy, it was, the sense of excitement. Still got some kind of like, rush from it when we have codes would happen or have a trauma come into the ER or something like that. But on down the line, as it continued and the new wore off and reality sunk in, I mean, a lot of triggers like the smell of like burnt skin would trigger me. A lot of the screaming of parents in the ER if they've lost a loved one, just that shriek, that scream took me back to Iraq when we'd hear a funeral or something of someone, one of their loved ones who have passed. I know what 2000 and I think it was 2015, I was working at Children's Hospital of Birmingham in Alabama in the cardiovascular intensive care unit. And that was probably my best experience working in the medical field, but also my hardest experience
Mm.
because, we were working with these children, but we were also working with Muslim families.
Mm.
And I was still struggling with that. So when they would pray, that would always trigger me and
Mm.
bring me back. And it just like that led to one of my almost suicide attempts, is experience and going through that.
Wow, that's now that you mentioned that, it's like you people. I think well, I'm sure you agree, or you tell me your part on this. How much does the things of matters of the heart, right? Like the social elements, your family back home, or the environment you're surrounded in. How much does that play a role in PTSD as well? Like, you said hearing Muslims pray, it's like
Yep.
triggered something.
Yep. That really set me back. Talking about as far as like when I was still going through it all.
Yeah.
Um, I think it just isolated. I didn't feel like I was worthy of love.
Mm.
So I didn't feel like I was worthy to be in a relationship. I mean, I would get in relationships, I would sabotage them,
Hmm.
I would destroy friendships. I didn't feel like I was good enough or worthy of having somebody that actually cared for me. I think PTSD, that moral injury, is really what caused that, is that worthlessness inside of myself.
Wow, man. When I hear you talk, I always I hear myself, in the exact same shoes.
Yeah.
In your experience working with the PTSD Foundation of America, do you see the same symptoms? Having worked closely with veterans.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I could see myself in probably every veteran we work with at some point.
Hmm.
A lot of the struggles of the veterans that I've worked directly with very closely reflect what I went through.
Yeah. A lot of veterans become very good. We talked about this right now. Very good at appearing functional,
Mhm.
right? Put that mask on. What were you able to hide from people during those 12 years, and what did it cost you?
Yeah, well, what I believe I was able to hide was a lot of that pain, the suicidal ideations, the suicide attempt, really hiding everything I was struggling with eternally. I looked like I had a good career, I had my own place. I was a functioning adult. I had everything, but at the same time, I don't sleep hardly. I didn't sleep hardly a night then. Sat in depression the majority of the time. I was avoiding everything, whether it be if I was smoking marijuana to avoid, or
Mm.
avoid them at the gym, or I got into pills for a little bit, and you start using substance to avoid. Like, I masked all of that with that.
Yeah. That's, I think, having gone through it myself, I, I, I mean, that resonates with a lot of veterans. And I think that's what's so important about us having this conversation, right?
Mhm.
There's someone out there just that has experienced the exact same thing. And, and having you come on the podcast is so important so that veterans don't feel alone.
Yep.
Like, we want to get out there and be in front to sharing our testimony and saying, hey, listen, if you're going through this, then I've been there. I'm with you in that journey. I've worn those same boots. I've walked the same sand. I've carried the same machine gun. Do you agree with that?
100%. And that's the beauty of what I get to do today, that peer-to-peer model where,
Mm.
a lot of veterans will say they won't talk to a counselor or psychologist because, like, they don't know what I've been through. And I understand that, but they're also professionals. They can still help you. But a lot of the times where, as a professional like that can't get through to a veteran, when I can sit there and tell them my testimony, be like, I was you 10 years ago. So you can't tell me you can't improve. You can't move forward in life, because I'm here to show you you can. You just got to let me help you.
Yeah. Um, and this is a big one for a lot of combat veterans too. That's why it was so important to have you again. I'll say is because when we met, I felt this strong, like, man, this is an important topic because it kept impacting my life tremendously, and didn't know your story at the time, but I knew
Mhm.
you had to have one.
Yeah.
If you're the general manager of PTSD Foundation, like, you had to have one that understands cognitive empathy and has that humanizing element
Mhm.
of the experience. When suicidal ideation becomes part of a veteran's life, it can be hard for people on the outside to understand. What do you wish people understood about that kind of internal fight?
So no, just me personally. So I've had one attempt actually where I think it was 20 Klonopin, drank a 6 pack of beer, and lay down and didn't want to wake up. 2015, I was coming back from working in Children's Hospital. I felt like I'd failed. I'd been triggered. I was struggling. So I knew my ability that I could drive my car into oncoming traffic and kill myself,
Mm.
and where my thought process was. So I fought that, pulled over, called 911. And then in 2016, when I was going behind my mother's house to shoot myself and just kind of get rid of everything, it wasn't me trying to fight against the internal pain. It was more me. I'd convinced myself my loved ones would be better off without me.
Mm.
Like, I would no longer be a burden to my family, a burden to my friends, like, and then they could go on, live a normal, functioning, happy life, and then they wouldn't have to worry about me anymore. So it wasn't for me, it wasn't a personal thing to take away the pain. It was for my loved ones, is what I convinced myself.
Mm. What was the turning point? What finally came when what hit you came head on with you?
Yeah, well, after a couple of VA programs, being in the acute psych unit a few times at the VA, it was September 21st, 2016. I had lost my job. I had pushed all my friends away. I was 35 years old, living with my mother. I was at the bottom of my bottom. And so that day I had decided I was going to go to the creek behind my mother's house. I was going to take a pistol out there. I was going to shoot myself. I brought my phone so they could find the body. The creek would clean up the mess, so I didn't burden my mother with any of that. And then I was down in the creek, and I didn't want to kill myself, but I felt like that was the only way out.
Mm.
So I was begging God, just, God, I need you right now. God, please take me. And my phone rang, and it was a Marine veteran that had picked me up from a VA PTSD program prior. If it wasn't a veteran, I don't know if I would have answered the phone, but I did. And this is when God really stepped in. He said, Kenny, God put you on my heart. What's going on? I told him exactly what was happening. He said, stay on the phone with me. So about 35 minutes later, he made it out to where I was at in Alabama, and he's like, "Let me tell you about a place called Camp Hope. I think it could really help you and get your life back on track." And of course, I wanted help, but I was like, "Oh, I don't want to go to Houston. Like, I can't afford a plane ticket. I can't afford this." He's like, "You don't have to worry about any of that. They'll pay for everything. All you got to do is accept the offer." I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." So the next day, I landed in Houston and began that journey of overcoming everything I'd went through with at Camp Hope.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. Listening to you, how important is it for you, for veterans, guys like that have been in our position, to say yes to an opportunity, to say yes to an invitation? How important is that?
It's life or death.
Mm,
Because if I wouldn't have done it, I would have died.
yeah, man,
I would be dead today. If I would have said no, I would be dead today.
that's crazy, man. It reminds me. This is kind of it kind of it's kind of similar to things too, because it doesn't have to always be like like it doesn't have to always be life or death in the context of like this particular incident. It is right.
Yep.
With this instance, it is. But how important is it just to like on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, that if there's a veteran a veteran event, experience, all those things, how important is it to say yes?
Oh, if you, it's like severely important because that's where you can start that journey of finding yourself again, finding that purpose again. A lot of stuff we lose when we come out of the military is purpose. And then, so when we're struggling through all this stuff, we don't have purpose. So saying yes to coming to a warrior group, saying yes to coming to go golf with a couple other veterans, saying yes to, counseling, that just opens up the door for veterans to find that healing they never thought they could find.
And what happens to a veteran when they don't say yes?
They continue to live in that negative, dark place they've been in for so many years.
Yeah, so true, man. Yeah, I just think about, I remember I got invited to Guitars for Vets,
Yep.
right? And I went to the first meeting, met the guy. He called me and said, "Hey, Rush, want to be a part of this program?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." I said yes. And then I showed up and he gave me the guitar and he gave me all the equipment. And then I just left the guitar in the corner of my house, my room, for like weeks.
Yep.
And he's like, "Rush, what's going on, man? Like, what, where you at? What's up?" And I said, "Dude, I don't know if I don't know if I could do this." And he stayed on the phone with me, and he talked to me, and I said, something in my mind just clicked. It just said, "Dude, this guy's putting his ass on the line to be there for you. He's donating 10 weeks to teach you to play a guitar
Yep.
by yourself, private sessions, and you can't pick up the guitar and go."
Yep.
Like, it really had this, and every time I walked by the guitar, man, I was so pissed
Mm-hmm.
at the guitar.
Yep. Yep.
And
I understand that.
yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, I was so mad at that guitar. I was like, screw you. I'll buy you again tomorrow. So I'll see you same time, same place. And I walked by the guitar, and the guitar won.
Yeah.
And it ended up, I would go to lessons, and my wife and I had the guitar they lent me, and then I got my wife a guitar, and we learned. We start every time I went to a lesson, he came back and taught her the lesson, and we would play
Nice.
guitar in the living room together.
Nice.
So, let me ask you this. Let's switch gears. Let's talk about PTSD Foundation of America. Tell me a little bit about it, and how did you get involved with
Yeah.
the organization?
So the PTSD Foundation of America is a veteran nonprofit. It started in 2006, and our executive director, David Mosby, says this all the time. They started with nothing but a paperclip. So they would go out in the community and find homeless veterans. They'd give them food, help them with clothing, some blankets and stuff like that. And it just kind of evolved over the time. They started to see the need for bringing veterans together for community. So that's where warrior groups came from. And then in 2012, they broke ground on Camp Hope. So Camp Hope was the big, our inpatient or interim housing program for male combat veterans. And that's how I got involved. So me going through Camp Hope, graduating there, they offered me an opportunity to to work there as a mentor. So I mentored the early phases early on. And then throughout, I started to mentor the later phases. And like we got some questions later. We'll talk about that more in
Yeah.
depth. But really, the goal of the PTSD Foundation, we want to make sure the veterans we work with know they're not alone in this struggle. It's like, and we tell them all the time, like, you know, if I'm working with a new veteran and he's kind of, or she's, they're kind of hesitant to accept help, I'm like, look, when you were in the military, did you, you know, fight alone? Were you by yourself? Like, no, you're in a squad, a platoon, or whatever that looks like. Then why are you doing it by yourself now?
Mm.
Let us be there for you. Let us help you. Like, there's nothing to lose here. So that's what we really get the opportunity to do at the PTSD Foundation, is help veterans find that hope and healing that they thought they couldn't find.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. It's lucky. We're lucky to have you out there, um, leading the charge, you know,
Yep.
taking on that mission and to get one veteran at a time, and maybe two or three if you could. Let's go.
Yep.
You know? Do you feel like you had a sense of responsibility to turn around and, like I say, you know, a while back ago, a long time ago, someone told me I was a captain of a sinking ship, and then when I got better, did you when you started feeling whole again? Did you feel like you had a responsibility to go back and get some of your guys and bring them?
I did.
Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
That's awesome. Okay. When you first arrived at Camp Hope, what did you immediately realize this place understood about veterans that a lot of the outside world still misses?
The camaraderie, the brotherhood, so the big guys tell us all the time is like, you know, I was in Alabama, I was isolated, you know, I didn't have any support. You know, I'd use the VA, but at that time there wasn't a whole lot of community there. I walked on campus and got in processed and went to my bay I was in, Bravo Bay. There's 13 other veterans that were sitting there that understood exactly where I was at, what I was going through. For the first time since 2004, I felt like I was at home. I felt like I wasn't isolated. I felt like that I could actually be vulnerable and work through my stuff and talk. I just didn't feel like I didn't fit in anymore. I finally felt like I was at home.
Yeah, that and how many people go to this like Camp Hope? What is it? How many times does it meet, or how does it work throughout the year annually?
Yeah, so Camp Hope, we take veterans in at any given day. We don't have to start it on a cycle.
Okay.
We have usually anywhere between 75 and 85 veterans on campus 24/7. Um, what was the rest of the question?
Just I guess like is it a what is Camp Hope? Is it
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so Camp Hope is a 6 to 9 month interim housing program for male combat veterans.
Okay.
So it's a holistic approach. It's mind, body, and spirit. It's broken down in a couple of different phases. First, when you do intake, they take up all your electronics, your cell phone, all your distractions get taken away from you there, so you have time to focus on yourself. And it's broken down into 4 separate phases. So you got the first phase is called Black Phase. It's 30 days. That's the phase where you have no communication with anybody outside of the program. You can have snail mail with family, but that's really it for that first 30 days. But it allows the veteran time to get settled into the program, to get their feet up under them. From some veterans, maybe be sober for the first time for 30 days for the first time in however many years. It really gives that veteran time to just start to let go. After that first 30 days, they'll move into red phase. Red phase is anywhere from 3 to 5 months. And that phase is more of a progress-based phase. So it's based on the amount of trauma the veterans may be struggling with. Because we don't just focus on combat trauma. We focus on childhood trauma, military trauma, post-military trauma, all that. So red phase is where you really start digging into your trauma, working one-on-one with your counselor, working one-on-one with your peer mentor. I say peer mentor, all the mentors at Camp Hope are combat veterans who have been through the program themselves. So that's a huge part of what we do. Like I said, during red phase, you'll get some freedoms to go off campus, but you're still pretty much restricted to campus. That's where the main part of that healing starts. And then once you complete red phase, you'll move into yellow phase, which is the final mandatory phase. So that's a 2-month phase where the veteran gets all their distractions reintroduced to them. over time. It's not just dumped at them. We do it over, a couple of week period, kind of slowly reintegrate them back into it. And then they'll be able to go off campus to events. They'll have their vehicles back. So it's the testing ground for all the tools and skills you learned in black and red phase. And now you're starting to apply them to your life outside of Camp Hope. And then you have the safety to come back and have support to kind of process what you went through. You have the warrior groups on site so you can talk about your experiences. And then also has some classes that help the veteran get ready to transition. So we look at classes such like vision building, relationships, anger management, budgeting, stuff like that to get the veteran to be more successful after they graduate the program. So once they do graduate the program, if they need more time to transition out, so they need to save money, maybe a slower reintegration with the family, we offer green phase. So green phase is on a month-to-month basis for the veteran. As long as they're taking the steps they need to transition out successfully, they have the full support of the Camp Hope. They can still live there. They go take care of their business in the daytime. They can come back, and then they have their mentor to check in with them. They still have all the support of Camp Hope on site. So it's really a full program where the veteran, the long program is so effective because it allows that veteran, where a lot of times, if you go through a 30 to 45 day program, you get what is called a pink cloud. You get to that point where you feel like, I've got it, I'm great, all this is good. But then the length of our program allows them to get to that and then to come back to reality. And then that's where the work really starts.
Yeah. How does the family play into that that rehabilitation program?
Yeah, so the family is a huge portion. So we did find, early on that if we're not supporting the family while the veteran's getting help, we're not really helping the veteran. So we offer family groups for the families. So we do support groups for them. They have a family, not a mentor, a family, I can't remember her title exactly, but they support the family. They help them find counseling in their local areas. They have the family support groups. They offer resources for families while they're veterans in there. They really want to make sure the family's getting that healing too.
Yeah.
Because if we send the veteran back into that environment, it's just not effective for continued recovery.
Yeah. That's amazing, man. Like I didn't know the whole thing about Camp Hope. It's a serious program that is looking to basically rebuild. Introduce a new way. I say charting new horizons of brilliance, new horizons of mental health and wellness, and getting that veteran to a high level of self-consciousness, and that's so beautiful, and the family for that matter, right? Like, that's why I asked you about family, because people come back and the veteran's different, and they're used to, the old self of Johnny, and Johnny comes home and like, who are you?
Yeah.
Like, my name's John.
Yeah, the reintegration family process is a very important part of it.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. That's pretty cool. I mean, I got to learn more about this program for sure. Camp Hope is built around more than housing or temporary support. What do you think the program's really trying to restore inside a combat veteran?
A sense of purpose and hope. So, the peer-to-peer mentors are really the bread and butter of what happens at Camp Hope. So, you got maybe 20 combat veteran mentors that are helping roughly 80 combat veterans on their journey. So really they're helping that veteran navigate all their struggles, all their sacrifices, all of their traumas, helping them find their way through that. So they are Camp Hope, but we help to restore hope.
Yeah.
It's in the name. It sounds cheesy, but it's real.
Yeah, it's crazy, man, because Hope, I just had a guy who on the podcast this week, and we talked about hope, and for a lot of veterans and a lot of other individuals for that matter, like, that hope is like, it's the deal breaker.
Yep.
Is a deal breaker. It's crazy. And how would you define hope?
Hope? How would I define hope? That's a good question. I'll define it as a belief to have a future, a better future than you deserve.
Okay, that's good, man. That's good. I think that's the thing. You have a better future than you think you're worthy of or you
Yep.
deserve, right? Like, and you and then when it's realized, you're like, whoa, you
Yep.
know, you get there, right? Um, let's see here. Next question is: you helped create the transitional phase of the program. What were veterans struggling with after let me start over. You've helped create the transitional phase of the program. What were veterans struggling with after stabilization that made you realize something deeper was still missing?
Yeah, so when I started working at Camp Hope, I was a mentor in the red and black phases, the early phases. And then there's a running joke where it was called, we had black phase, red phase, and then transition is where recovery went to die.
Hmm.
So in 2017, I was offered the opportunity to take over transition and to build that part of it. And what we saw was once the veterans got over there, there was really no structure. There was nothing set up for them to continue their healing process and for somebody to help guide them in reintegrating into society, really.
Yeah.
So once I got the opportunity to take over that part, I developed a full curriculum for the last 2 months of Yellow Phase. I developed everything that helped the veteran transition out in a more successful way. So prior to that, we had a board for graduation that had a few points on it, but we ended up adding 10 different areas. I can't remember all of them now, but the veteran has to have a 30, 60, 90-day plan for 10 different areas in their life before they're even able to move from red phase to yellow phase and then to graduate. So the goal for that is to really, I wanted to structure it to where it looked like if you had a normal job.
Mhm.
So during the daytime, we had classes set up, we had, certain things set up for them. And then after that, it was their free time.
Hmm.
They could come and go off campus, they can go do this. And that's where a lot of the issues were earlier. Like they just sat around, didn't do a whole lot. They would come and go, and then they would fall back into their old habits.
Yeah.
But now we're trying to structure the last couple of months of the program for transitioning, trying to structure it to where it's more realistic for your day-to-day life after you get out of the program.
Mm.
So I think that was the biggest part that I think really helped the veterans become more successful leaving the program is already kind of having something that may look like their life after the program, but then experiencing those temptations and traumas and triggers and things that would make them go back in their old way, but them experiencing that, coming back and talking to their peer mentor about it or talking about it in warrior group and finally going, before if I experienced this, I would went back into full depression or relapse, whatever that looks like. But now I can come back, talk about it at a warrior group and sleep easy at night.
Yeah.
I think that was a big portion of what my goal was when structuring that last couple of months of the program.
That's amazing, man. I'm sitting here in awe, like in awe of you,
Yeah.
because you said yes to this opportunity when maybe your habit self would have said no.
Yeah.
You know, like your habit self at during that juncture in your life, broken, feeling helpless, hopeless, hurt, and all the other things that go on with that.
Yep.
But you said yes,
Yep.
and now you're the general manager of the PTSD Foundation of America.
Yep.
When you look back at that, when you actually look back at that, when you look at yourself in the mirror, or your family looks at you, what do you see?
Me today, I see someone who follows Christ
Hmm.
and have a job, but it's not really a job. It's a blessing. It's what I get to go out every day and find veterans that are just like myself and offer them a chance at a new life.
Yeah.
Like, so when I look in my mirror, I'm finally proud of myself today. Before I went through my experience with Camp Hope and the PTSD Foundation, I couldn't look in the mirror at myself. That was one of the hardest parts. Even going through the program, that was one of the things we had to do. We had to look into the mirror, look into our eyes, and say, I love myself.
Wow.
Doing that the first few times was hard,
Yeah.
but today I can do it and actually believe it.
Shoot, I'm gonna have to do that after this podcast. Make sure I can do it. No, seriously though, I mean that's powerful, man. That is so powerful. Okay, I want to revert something that I recently had. And you talked about your faith, your Christianity, right?
Yep.
Because that's a from what what I'm seeing is like, where is the prayer life in the veteran advocacy space? Where is it? You know, like, do you? I had just had I had a couple on here just a few podcasts ago, and one of the things that enticed me is that he was a colonel for the Army or the Navy, one of the two,
Yep.
and his wife, they do prayers, they leave prayers on Facebook, and Rex King, wherever you're at, I love you. And Donna, I love y'all. So I had them both on the podcast, and and all they kept doing was posting about prayers.
Mm.
And I know they were part of their ambassadors for Air Power Foundation, and I said, dude, I gotta get this couple. You know, they're Vietnam veteran, but they all they kept posting was prayer. Do you think that we need to do a better job of integrating prayer into the veteran advocacy space?
100. It's essential.
Yeah.
I believe. I think. I know. So we are a faith-based cross-center program.
Oh, okay.
So we do have we have devotionals in the program. We have church every Sunday. But for me and my journey by myself, I couldn't have done it without Christ. Without Christ, there would have been no hope for me after that.
Yeah.
So that's what Camp Hope really also did for me. It kind of restarted my relationship with Christ. I think if the veteran community and the VA, even the VA, if they could start to bring that spiritual component in. So I know I don't want the Christianity to be a turnoff for a veteran that
Yeah.
may want to use our services.
Right.
So we do have an approach where we're going to plant the seed. We're going to meet the veteran where they're at. Just saying the cross calls us to meet people where they are. And we're going to do that. But if they don't want to worship the way we worship, we respect that. So we kind of follow the same rules as AA or NA, where just put a higher power in that place, and then continue to work the steps, work the journey. And then our hope is that we planted the seed and we can continue to water it throughout our time with them.
Yeah.
And we can bring them across ultimate at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's the way you do it, right? I always tell people you have a higher power. You just don't know.
Yeah.
You just don't know what it is yet. Yet you got a wife. You love her, don't you? Well, guess who? Guess who's your higher power?
Yep.
Love for your wife, right? Like,
Yep.
you know what I'm saying? You work hard for your wife. You're in this program for your wife. That's your higher power, man. You're living for your family. You know,
Yep.
that's love. Let's see here. Okay, you've helped create. Okay, you got to ask that question. When you watch a veteran begin to transition successfully, what changes first? His habits, his mindset, his faith, his relationships, or the way he sees himself?
I think it's between the way he sees himself and his faith. It's pretty amazing to get to see that. So you would see a veteran come into the program, and you see it in their eyes. They're brokenness, they're lifeless, they're defeated, but within like probably 45 days, you see a brand new person. And this person, you see life in their eyes again. You see them smiling when they're working with the veterans on Camp Hope, or they're going out and doing the equine therapy that we have on site. You see a brand new person. So I think it begins with faith, but some veterans don't know that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, what separates a place that simply shelters veterans from a place that actually helps rebuild them?
So the way we look at, so we have a whole program laid out for the veteran to help teach them the skills that they maybe have never been taught before, like emotional regulation. A lot of people are never taught emotional regulation. So when you learn that, you can start to identify what true emotions you're really feeling and help to understand that process. That's one of the things we offer the relationship, understanding your attachment styles and relationships, which really helps the veterans start to understand not only their relationships like with maybe their spouse, but their relationship with Christ. A lot of the attachment styles, they mirror your relationships throughout. So figuring that out and understanding that, helping that veteran understand PTSD more, helping them learn some skills and tools to overcome when they get triggered, or if they're out driving, they get road rage real bad. They need to learn some skills to ground themselves. So a lot of what we do, we offer those tools and skills to teach the veterans to, when they're in that, to overcome it. I guess just a housing program is really more for. I've heard of them. I've never experienced it, but I've heard of them as is where they just go and use and then kind of leave at some point. So it's not really yeah, it's just a housing. It's not really to help them rebuild their lives.
Yeah. Couple more questions, man, and we'll wrap this up. What has leading veterans at Camp Hope taught you about the kind of support veterans actually need when they are trying to rebuild their lives?
That's that one more time.
What has leading veterans at Camp Hope taught you about the kind of support combat veterans actually need when they're trying to build their lives?
They need community. They need other veterans that they can talk to, that they can have community with, have fellowship with. That's the biggest part, is having that community. And that's the beauty of what we get to do, is what I do now in the outreach chapters. So the PTSD Foundation of America, we have 5 chapters right now across the country. We have the North Texas DFW chapter, we have Houston, San Antonio, Tampa, and Atlanta. And we offer support groups for veterans. They're called warrior groups. So that's where we have that community for veterans to come in, and we will have a topic on some weeks and we'll kind of talk about that, but it really just allows that veteran to come in and be themselves and talk about what they went through that week without fear of judgment. Or, you know, in civilian life, if you're with a group of people and you're like, man, my boss, they did something, I wish I could murder them. They may think, oh, this person's crazy, but out of, in the community with a veteran, they're like, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, I know you're not going to murder them, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool, man. Okay. Got one more question, but first I want you to, if people want to get a hold of you, or be a part of the PTSD Foundation of America, or inquire about Camp Hope, where would they go?
Yeah, so if you want to learn more about the PTSD Foundation of America and Camp Hope, you can go to our website at www.ptsdusa.org. On that side, just go to Get Help and click on Camp Hope. They have all the information about Camp Hope. And then if you want to look for a local support group in your area, like a warrior group, just go to Get Help, find a group, and they'll pull up the different chapters. We also have a national chapter. If we don't have a physical chapter within your area, we have a national chapter that offers warrior groups virtually. So there's plenty of opportunities to get connected with the veteran community. Also there, you'll find our family groups. So for families that are out there that need that connection, you can find family groups and get on and have community there.
That's beautiful, man. Okay, I actually have 2 more questions. First of all, when you hear the phrase unfinished business, what does that mean to you personally at this stage in your life?
Unfinished business. Still too many veterans taking their lives every day. And that's our goal, is to save one. That's our unfinished business, is to make sure we find that veteran and don't be their last no. Too often, too many times, a veteran reaches out for help and we can't right now because we don't have bed space, or we can't right now because this, that, and the other. We don't want to be their last no. So too many veterans are taking their lives these days.
When it's all said and done and you're on the stairway to heaven, how would you want your family, your peers to remember you by?
As a man of Christ, somebody who reached out, helped others out of love and empathy, passion, and really represented what Christ calls us to do.
Kenny, my brother.
I appreciate it.
Dude, this has been a long time coming for me. You've been in my, however they say is, you were always on my radar to have you on this podcast. It means a lot to me to have a leader in the space of PTSD and all the things that come with that, and mental health and all the things we discussed today. It's amazing to have a leader like you on the podcast to push the mission forward, to as I just had an interview with a Medal of Honor guy. I said, what does unfinished mean? He said, it keeps me alive.
Yep.
And that's about all about it, and I'm so grateful and thankful that you're here today, and I respect and admire the work you're doing, and even more now today, even more your journey and all that you put your nose down and said, let's go. We're going to get this. We're going to write this in God's eyes and in front of men and for the world to see. So it's a blessing to know you and have you in the podcast today.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, brother. All right, guys, that's it for Unfinished Business, a podcast for veterans pursuing new life missions. As I always say, have peace and delight in you. And remember that the ocean refuses no river.
1, 2.